Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in ma ba'du. So today, inshallah, is part 2 of the Rehab clinic, which is basically going back to the basics and filling in and correcting the problems that we are having concerning the basics of the deen that we really skipped over in a lot of areas, or we don't give any importance to it, or we give very little importance to it, or if any importance at all. So hopefully every clinic we deal with a different subject. In the day, inshallah, we're going to deal with the importance of learning Islam, learning deen. Specifically, the importance of learning deen. And there's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there are many hadith of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam that encourage or I'm sorry, hold on a minute. That encourage learning. It's nowhere we find the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the encouragement or that it's okay for us to be ignorant of our religion. Nowhere do we find that it's okay. It's something that is encouraged. Not that a person can't know something, because we all don't know until we learn. But when we don't know and then we continue to not know. Not that a person can't know something. What this we all don't know until we learn. But when we don't know and then we continue to not know. Not that a person can't know something. What this we all don't know until we learn. I might need you for this. But when we don't know and then we continue. Oh, never mind. I don't know what some new stuff, man. It's cool. I guess. Tell you. None of us are born with knowledge of the deen already. So that means we have to put some effort to learn. Part of our problem is, part of it, especially in Philly, is so many Muslims. There's so many people that look like Muslims. It's so easy to pick up on little bits and pieces of Islam just in walking around the street, just in going to work, going in your regular day throughout the day. It's easy, if a person is paying attention, to pick up on things from Islam. And a lot of us have made that enough, right? That's enough. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to go buy Islamic clothes, a kufi and a thobe and a izar. That's easy. It don't take no work. You spend a couple of hours, less than $50. You spend a couple of hours and it's working. And I'm sorry, you spend a couple of hours and it's not on the list. No, I don't know either. It's easy to do that. That doesn't take effort, right? It's easy to look like something. That takes very little effort, especially when everybody around you is doing it. That makes it even easier, right? It's easy to say the easiest or the newest terms or whatever the phrases are that people are saying. Look. Hello? Hello. It's unmuted. I don't know how that worked out. It was just talking while I was talking. I don't know. Me either. Tayyib. And a lot of us stopped there. A lot of people made it, that's enough. I look like a Muslim, right? but I don't know really what the Muslim believes, what I'm supposed to believe. I don't really know how I'm supposed to behave as a Muslim. What's supposed to change about me? A person accepts Islam, he takes Shahada. That means there's a change coming. It's something I'm gonna be doing different. I should be expecting as a Muslim that I'm gonna be doing some things different than I was doing before I was a Muslim. This joint crazy. I don't know what's up. I hope it's not. Tayyib. So with that, we leave off the advice in the Quran and the Sunnah about learning and the importance of knowledge. When we say knowledge of the religion of Islam, okay? And that's a wide area by itself. There's some things that every Muslim has to know. You don't have to be a scholar. There's some things that it's not scholarly information. This is information for the general Muslim. All Muslims need to know it. Nobody's excused from knowing it. Then there are things that are a little more detailed that may not be the everyday Muslim walking around may not need to know that. It may not be on them, obligatory on them to go and learn that. And it goes like that. So we're talking about the bare minimum of what we need to know as Muslims, right? The bare minimum. And the problem, we got to know what the problem is. The problem is a lot of us, we're comfortable with just looking like a Muslim. We're comfortable with people know that I'm Muslim, and we're comfortable with that. Meaning comfortable enough not to go learn anything else after that.
I think another issue is that a lot of us think that because we've been Muslim for 10 years, 15, 20, however long we've been Muslim,
right,
that we just through osmosis just know the deen.
Right. Or we think that just because we've been Muslim for some time, I like that through osmosis, we know the deen, which is not realistic. That's not realistic. So what we have to do is be realistic as far as what does Islam encourage us regarding learning our deen. This is basic. After I become a Muslim, what am I supposed to do? What does Islam encourage me to do? Is it enough that I take Shahada and then everybody know he took Shahada, she took Shahada? That's it. You go down to wherever Av is close to you, buy some Islamic clothes, a couple books, and then you're good. Change your name over, and that's it. But we talking about learning substance, how to pray, how to make wudu, how to believe in Allah. What do we believe? What is it still okay for a Muslim to celebrate Christmas? Like basic Islamic principles, we skip over them as if they're not important. Part of that is knowledge, not knowing what Islam deems important. What's important in our deen is what Allah and His Messenger told us is important. Alayhi salatu wasalam. It's nowhere we're going to find in the Islam, y'all. It's nowhere we're going to find in Islam the encouragement to sit around and just not know. All the encouragement is to be knowledgeable. Inside deen and outside of deen. Islam doesn't encourage us to be ignorant outside of our deen. So we know all the Islamic stuff, but we can't even function in the world. That's not from our deen either. It's not from our deen that we know all the Islamic, everything about Islam, we got it locked down. When it comes to being knowing how to fill out a job application, right? How to go on an interview, that we don't know none of that. It's nothing prevents us Islamically from learning that. So today we're talking about Islamic knowledge, right? Because this is something that's going to, inshallah, part of the rehab is hopefully it corrects the way we approach in Islam, the way we approach our lives as Muslims every day. So in this section, this is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it says, "Talab al-ilm faridatun ala kulli Muslim." It says seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim. Talab al-ilm faridatun ala kulli Muslim. Right? Seeking knowledge. What knowledge? Or what does it mean anyway? Seek knowledge. To learn. To learn what? To learn the religion. Well, let's use that term. Learning Islam is obligatory on every Muslim. Because we might say seek knowledge. People might not understand what that means. That might sound like a term for a specific group of people. Only a specific group of people could seek knowledge. No. Learning Islam. Talab al-ilm. Talab in Arabic has a couple different meanings. Talab is to order or request something. To request, to ask for something is a talab, right? Talab al-ilm is that a person is asking and they're going out and trying to get what? Knowledge, right? They're trying to learn Islam. So it's not restricted that you have to go to another country to learn. Like we might have that misconception. You can't learn Islam except if you go to another country. You got to leave the country to learn. Number one, that's not the example that the Salaf left. And if we read the biographies of the Salaf, that they did what? They exhausted all of the options in their area. They learned from everybody they can learn from in their area first. All the scholars and sheikhs in their area that they can get knowledge from, that's who they went to. All of the masters that they went there, learned from them, learned from everybody that they can learn from in their original homeland. That's what they did first. Once they've been through everybody, there's no more that they can learn from these people. So, for example, this sheikh knows the Arabic language. And let's just say, just to make it clear, he is the most knowledgeable of the Arabic language in Philadelphia, right? With that, when I go to study with him, he has 5 levels that he teaches people. He's the most knowledgeable. He has 5 levels that you can go through with him. Once I finish those 5 levels, however long it takes me, it could take me a year, it could take me 5 years, it could take me 10 years. Once I finish that with him, that means what? I can go no further with him in that science of Arabic language. That means I need what? I need a new teacher. I need somebody above him. But he's the most knowledgeable here. There's nobody above him. Everybody knows. So now what do? Now I go outside of my locale. Get it? That's the idea. That's the original way, right? And not just that, now this sheikh here, he knows hadith. So he's the most knowledgeable in hadith here. So I study everything that he has with him with hadith. That might take however many years it takes. Once I'm done, there's nobody here that can go above that. And I need more, right? I want more. So I have to do what? I had to leave and go somewhere else to get it. Clear? Tayyib. That's the case for every science. So once a person did that, they exhausted all their options. There's nobody else to go to in any of the sciences. Now they leave and they go somewhere else. Now we got to ask us, how much of that do we do? If we even can get past the trust people to take knowledge from them, right? The people that we trust, how much information have we taken from them so that, you know what? I think I've taken everything I can from them. I need to move on. Because that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to stick with a sheikh or a teacher until you've got everything that you can get from them. And then you can move on. That's not a condition, but that was the way the Salafis would do it. They would leave after they exhausted all their options. And that's why when we got to Mecca in the Arabic program, the strongest students in our classes were the students from different countries. We all in the Arabic program learning Arabic together. Arabic is not our first language. People from Africa, from China, from Pakistan, from Turkey, right? From Britain, from America. Arabic is not our first language. So we all there learning Arabic together. The strongest people in the class were the people who studied in their country first before they came. I say, man, your Arabic is good, mashallah. You already studied? Yeah, I studied with this one and this one and this one in Nigeria. Or this one and this one in Mali. All right? You know Arabic already? No, I don't know Arabic when I already finished the Quran. They were already studying. They didn't just up one day and didn't do any type of studying and then pop up. Some people did. We were close to that. Like our level was close to that. And there were some people who, I know a brother, he had just learned Arabic, how to read the alphabet. He said he had just learned how to read the alphabet 2 weeks before he came. He had just learned how to read Arabic. I say for Dean, I think it was from I forgot. Not Uzbekistan. I forgot the other one. But anyway, the strongest students were the ones who had already studied. They already knew that knowledge is not, you don't just show up there on zero. We showed up there a lot of times on zero, for the most part. Tayyib. So the hadith says of the Prophet ﷺ that learning knowledge of the deen is obligatory on every Muslim. Farida. If something is obligatory, what does that mean? Sinful if you don't do it. It's an obligation. And if you don't do it, it's what? It's a sin. It's punishable. Tayyib. Islam is a lot of sciences. So does this mean that every Muslim has to learn the whole deen? What does it mean? Because it doesn't specify. The basics. Well, good. But the basics. What are the basics? How can we determine what the basics are? Because it says returning back to the basics in our lives as Muslim. Type. How do we know what's basic and what's not basic? What's basic and what's advanced? Fard Ayn. What does that mean?
The things that are obligatory for the category that is obligatory for every Muslim.
Tayyib.
Well, first you can start with the pillars. The pillars are the basic foundation.
The pillars. Jade. Is a way to summarize it up. He said things that are obligatory for every Muslim to know. There are some things every Muslim must know. Sheikh said the pillars of Islam, right? What are the basics of Islam? That's included. The pillars are included, but it's something a little more general. Because I might say something that's basic and you might say, man, that's a little advanced. That's a little advanced for me, right? But we got to know, you got to know the pillars. Yeah, some knowledge is some information every Muslim has to know, right? Nobody's excused from knowing these things. Those things are the basics. But now the question is, well, how do we know? How do we specify what those things are? Everybody get the question? Clear? How do we specify the things that every Muslim has to know? There's no exception if you don't know this. It's not okay to not know. Some things it might be okay not to know for specific people. Like, for example, the science of mirath, al-irth, inheritance, right? Everybody walking around, the Muslims might not know how to do it. They might not know how to break it down, right? Somebody has to know, but is it for all of us to know? Do all of us have to know exactly how to do it? That's not a science. That's not a knowledge that's considered, right? It's not a knowledge that's considered to be specific for everybody. But there's some things like what? What does everybody have to know? How to pray. What else? Wudu. What else? Fasting. Y'all missed the most important one. Tawheed. Firstly, Tawheed. That's the first thing. We got to understand with the Shahada and the rights of Allah. These are things that everybody has to know. Pillars. Now, the ulama summarize as whatever a person needs to practice their deen on an everyday basis, these are the basics you got to know them. And from those things is the Shahada, the meaning of the Shahada, a Tawheed, right? What the Muslims believe, the Salat, and everything that goes with the Salat. You can't be a Muslim and not pray every day. I'm not saying that the people that don't pray every day ain't Muslim, y'all. Pay attention. You can't be a Muslim not believing that Islam, the pillar, the second pillar of our deen is what? The Salat. Right? A person takes Shahada, they understand, okay, the Salat is a pillar. From the belief of the Muslims is that Islam is built on 5 things. From those 5 things is the Salat. So the Salat is super important. You can't not know how to. You got to know, we have to know the Tawheed of Allah, how to worship Allah. Allah's oneness, that Allah is not to be, no one is to be worshipped except for Allah. All worship is for Allah. Well, what is worship? How do we know if we're doing something that's worship or it's not worship? Right? We have to stay away from all types of shirk. is no time we're permitted to make shirk with Allah. Right? Shirk is off limits, 100%. Right? Now I gotta know, well, is it only one type of shirk? What's shirk? What is it? So I know to stay away from it. What is tawheed? So I know to do it every day. Right? These are things we're not allowed to be ignorant of. We can't not know them. Tayyib, these are the basics that a Muslim needs to practice their deen every day. Those things are what the hadith refers to. That learning Islam is obligatory on every Muslim. Learning what from Islam? Learning those things, those issues that I need everyday life to carry on as a Muslim. So when we say salat, that means everything connected to the salat, which is first what? The conditions of the salat. Specifically what? Like what? Tahara. Specifically what? Wudu. How you going to pray if you didn't make wudu? Before wudu, the niyyah, your intention. What is the intention supposed to be? How do I make my intention? What else? Cleanliness of the place. That the place I'm playing is clean. This is a big one, y'all. Istinja. How to clean ourselves after we use the bathroom. This is not this information. We use the bathroom every day. Akramakumullah. Right? We have to clean ourselves properly in order to stand up and pray. Right? We have to stand up to pray, salat, 5 times a day, every day. And as human beings, we're using the bathroom maybe how many times a day? That means we have to be cleaning ourselves properly in order to pray. Because in order to pray, we have to be clean from any type of najas, filth. Right? Urine, we have to be clean from that. Well, how do we clean ourselves? All of that's connected to the second pillar. That information is not information that you have to go overseas to learn. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with going overseas to learn. What I'm saying is this information is obligatory like now. It's not obligatory once you get to sit in front of a sheikh after you learn, took you to learn 2 years, 3 years to learn Arabic. And now you can, no. These are basics, basic stuff. This is basic, right? So everything connected to how we believe in Allah. Because it's at no time, not today, tomorrow, the next day, or next week, are we allowed to worship other than Allah. So now we got to know, well, what's worship? How do I know if I'm doing something that's worship? Is this worship? Is it not worship? Because if it's worship, then that means it can only be for Allah. Right? Tawheed. Well, what is Tawheed? I got 3. Well, what's the 3 part? What does that mean? What does that equal when I go outside? All of that stuff is the pillars that we needed every day to worship. Right? Tayyib. After the salat, then what else? That we need every day. Or what else do we need every day for the sisters? Hijab, covering. What is it to properly cover? How do I know if I'm properly covered? And hijab, in its most famous sense, is for the woman. But in its reality, hijab is for men and women. Men have to be covered a certain way. Whether we praying or we not praying. Whether we're praying or we're not praying, there's a certain way that the Muslim is supposed to be covered at all times. Like hijab, in the sense, the famous is for the sisters. Am I covered properly? Am I not covered properly? Do I really have to cover? Do I really have to cover? Or is that like something optional? All of this stuff is everyday stuff that it can't go miss. Specifically for sisters, when it comes to, because I was referring to the second pillar, referring to the salat, the sisters have to know something very specific information about their menses. They don't pray when their menses is on. So what happens when you have those days, as they say, there's some spotting. All of that stuff is not, that's now. You pray every day. You're a woman. Your mens comes every month. Like, right? This is everyday information. So this hadith is referring to those things. Things outside of that, as the ulama say, those are fard kifaya. And those are recommended things to go learn the extras. But at least the basics, none of us are excused from knowing the basics. The problem is we think, since I know you and you know more than me, I'm going to just depend on you. Right? I'm going to just depend on my deen. I'm going to depend on you because you You've been around longer than me. You know much more than me. You've been Muslim longer than me. So I'm going to just base my whole deen on whatever you tell me. Because in my opinion, I got a good opinion of you. So in my opinion, you have more Islamic knowledge than me. So I trust you, which is not a problem. Right? That's normal. But it can be a problem. And we shouldn't be comfortable. We shouldn't be comfortable that we got to return everything back to somebody else. Now the question should be, well, where are you getting all your information from? If I got to come and ask you everything, right, then where are you getting it from? That's just like is it a book you reading the stuff out of? If not, I could just go buy the book, right? Like, where are you getting if I'm returning everything back to you, then where are you getting yours from? And that's why the ulama of Islam always say, go to where we went. The ulama that we love, they're not making stuff up as they go along, right? There's a source. They don't make it up as they go. They're getting the information from sources. Well, what are the source books? So when we sit with ulama, we ask him, Sheikh, we hear a new issue. SubhanAllah, Sheikh, where can I read that at? He said, look in such and such book. You write the book down. You go home, you pull a book. If you have it, you get the book off the shelf. And you do what? He tapped it to the, I just grabbed that. You grab the book off the shelf and you do what? You find exactly what he said here. If this is where he got it from, it should be in here. Boom. Now I don't have to reference Sheikh said. I can go to the Usul, the book, where it came from. Clear? If I don't do that, then I constantly say, the Sheikh said, the Sheikh said, Sheikh said, Sheikh said, Sheikh was saying. Well, cool, because some things are like that. The Sheikh is explaining it. Well, I never heard that issue. Where's that issue? Well, that issue is in such and such book. You might go home, you don't have a book. If you don't have a book, what you got to do? Go buy the book. Got to find the book. If you want to go that far. If you want to go that far, right? But the further you go like that, the stronger your iman is. The more trust you have in the deen, because you know where everything's coming from. It's only going to build your strength, your iman, right? So if you go home, you don't have the book, then you go buy the book. Some people, they're not going to go that far. And we're not saying that everybody has to, but there's some things we have no excuse. Those are the things we're talking about today. No excuse. So the hadith says, طَلَبَ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. The hadith says, we're going to say learning Islam is obligatory on every Muslim. And it literally says, it says, طَلَبَ الْعِلْمِ, which is, usually we say seek knowledge. Seek knowledge of what? Of Islam. Seeking knowledge of the religion of Islam is obligatory on every Muslim. But what knowledge are we talking about? We're talking about the knowledge that a person needs, a Muslim needs in their everyday life to practice their life, to live their life as Muslims. We're not talking about the things that will be considered recommended to go study. Tayyib. In here, and this is the explanation of 40 hadith from Sheikh Saleh al-Sheikh. And he outlines a basic way to learn Islam. Because sometimes, like when I first got to Mecca, I didn't know what to do. I thought it was just you get there and you just go for it. Right? Who having a class, you go sit in this class, you go sit in this class. Sheikhs everywhere. Sheikh out of class, go sit over there, you go sit over there. Right? And when you do that, you don't come up with much. You don't really come up with no substance like that. You heard a lot of information, but it's all over the place, it's scattered. And when you do that, because a person could do that like that, a person can do that randomly for years. And at the end, when it's all said and done, they're going to have a bunch of holes in how they understand things because it was sporadic and chaotic. And that's not how the ulama teach, and that's not how the ulama learn themselves. Scholars of Islam didn't learn like that, and they don't teach like that. But I didn't know that when I got there, so I thought it was go for it. And then it took me some time to figure out, wait a minute. And there's books like this, and information like this to let you know, okay, I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, I'm here. There's scholars around me. There's information, there's knowledge around me. I'm in the place, right? I'm sitting with the scholars, all of that. Yes, I'm here. But in reality, I didn't go about it right, so I'm missing it. It's flying right by me. I'm picking up a little bit, just a little. But if I came back here, y'all, you would think what? That's what you would think. You wouldn't know. Right? How would you know? How would you know? Osmosis. Huh?
There wasn't a man that went to Mecca, and he's speaking on the national tour, and he did the exact thing. He sat up under all the sheikhs in the haram.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get the whole picture,
Right.
but he sat up under Sheikh bin Baz. I guess for
Rahimahullah.
lack of a better word, he got dressed up, and Sheikh bin Baz put him on different ones.
Likewise. And then,
But he's going around nationally speaking as well.
mashallah.
But he's all over the place.
Right. Now, one thing is, no problem. One thing is going to learn, and da'wah is another lane. So if he's going around teaching, that's one thing. That's a different lane. Giving da'wah and teaching people, that's one lane. Learning and seeking knowledge, and that's a different lane. They're not the same. Because if we're in the learning lane, we're not worried about teaching nobody. We don't care. We learning ourselves. Right? When you're in the da'wah lane, now you got to worry about yourself learning and teaching other people, like publicly. When you're learning on your own, when you're in the learning lane, you just teaching, you learning yourself, and the most you teaching people right in front of you, your family and stuff like that. So they two different lanes. To go learn, or generally learning sporadically, chaotically, is going to be eventually at the end, when it's all said and done, that's when you're going to find a problem. And the person going to know, because they're going to talk to people who didn't do it like that. And they're going to see that they got a lot of holes. That's why it's on the person who does it to know their level and know, okay, I need to fix this, that, and the third. Because once you get into it, y'all, you're going to know. Once you really get into learning and going further, the more you learn, the more you see what? How much you don't know. The more you learn, the more you come across stuff you say, man, it's a lot of stuff I don't know. Right? And that's why it's supposed to. That's why the more you learn, it's supposed to humble you. You're supposed to change. Knowledge is supposed to change you. You figure, you thought you knew all of this stuff. Once you start getting into the books and you start really learning, you can find out, whoa, it's more that I don't know than I do know. So naturally, you should say what? Go harder, but what about what I thought I knew? I didn't know what I thought I knew, which should cause me to do what? Slow down. Let me slow down, because I thought I had all the answers. I thought I had all the answers. And I come to find out that I don't really know anything. And it's supposed to do what? Slow you down. If you're paying attention and you got some sense, let me calm down. Let me hold. Because I just told somebody something and now I'm looking at this wrong. And I done told a bunch of people that it's supposed to like that. Hold on. If you got sense, right? It's supposed to slow you down. So I'm not saying going to learn is not something to do. You know what I'm saying? What he's talking about here is the path and how you're supposed to learn, which applies to us. Right? So he says, that when you go to learn, there are basic things you got to learn. They're basics you're supposed to start with. And on top of that, there are levels to learning. Okay? I'll give you an example. There's some classes that are for beginners. And there's some classes that are intermediate. And there's some classes that are for the advanced students. It's the same. Our deen is the same. There's some information that is beginner information. Everybody needs this. At some point, you got to have this stuff locked in. You can't go to the intermediate level because the intermediate level includes everything from the beginner's level. How are you going to understand the intermediate level if you don't understand the beginner's level? The intermediate level means it's the beginner's level with additions on top of it, with extra stuff inside of it, right? So number one, he says learning, it has basic foundations that you have to know, and it has levels. فمن فات طالب العلم على رتبه وأصوله فإنه يحرم الوصول. So whoever is trying to learn and they're not getting the basics, the foundations, they skip that. Whoever doesn't get the basics, they don't follow the proper levels, they said they're going to be prevented from gaining knowledge. Ilm is not just information, y'all. Knowledge is not just having a bunch of information. Right? You can have a bunch of information and not understand it. Right? You have to have the hadith and understand how the hadith applies. The verse, the ayah from the Quran, how the ayah applies. What does it mean? And does it apply here? It doesn't apply in every situation. That's right. And of course, there are levels of knowledge. And that's why you have different titles before people's names. Right? You don't hear everybody referred to as Sheikh al-Islam. Everybody is not a Sheikh al-Islam. All the scholars that we know and love, all of them are not referred to as Sheikh al-Islam. Not by me. In the Muslim world, everybody does not refer to this scholar here, as great as he is, as Sheikh al-Islam. Clear? Why? He didn't reach that level. We're not saying not a scholar, but the scholars know. We nobodies. We just, as they said, we just transport information. The scholars don't refer to him as Sheikh al-Islam. Right? Everybody doesn't have the title in front of their name, Hafiz. Why? They haven't reached that level to be called that. Right? So they're levels. It's levels. And that's not a problem. It's just the reality. Everybody that has Sheikh in front of their name is not on the same level. If we don't know, y'all, a Sheikh can be, it could be a 40-year-old Sheikh, and it can be a 90-year-old Sheikh. And if you read their name on the flyer, it's going to say what? Sheikh such and such and Sheikh such and such. When you read the name, you don't know their age and their experience. Who got more experience, a 40-year-old Sheikh or a 90-year-old Sheikh? You understand? But if you look at the title, they share the same title, right? So some titles are, you would have to know the person and understand who it are. We've had scholars call us Sheikh. I know you're not talking to me. I know you don't mean that because you taught me. You understand what I'm saying? But sometimes Sheikh is used with the ulama out of respect, right? Sometimes they'll call you, even though you're younger than, they'll call you Sheikh out of respect, not because you're considered a person who has knowledge, right? And then you have ulama, they might be 40, 45, 50, right? We'll refer to them all of them as Sheikh, right? Because in reality, we learn from all of them. But in reality, the 40-year-old, he's nowhere near the 60-year-old. Not just because of his age only, right? Because of his knowledge. And the 40-year-old or the 50-year-old will tell you, that's right. The 80-year-old, he's my teacher. That's my Sheikh. And that's how it goes. So it's levels. So he's basically saying whoever skips the learning the basic things and the levels of knowledge, then they're going to be prevented from gaining knowledge, which doesn't mean you didn't do a lot of reading, right? It doesn't mean you wasn't around a lot of good people who had knowledge. I used to be around them, and they, mashallah, these are people that now, and I was around. It doesn't mean that. But you yourself, what you gain at the end, a person's going to be prevented. He says, وهذه المسألة ينبغي أن تقرر في قلوب طلبة العلم ومجيء العلم. He said, and every person who wants to learn has to keep this in mind. This has to be, as they say, in front of your eyes. You got to always keep this on your brain. ألا وهي, and it is أن يطلب العلم شيئا فشيئا على مر الأيام والليالي. He says that a person tries to learn, he says, step by step. You can't get everything in one day. You can't get everything in one weekend, right? That a person has to understand that knowledge is to be learned. Islam is to be learned step by step. But you have to put forth the effort. There got to be some importance. We only make time for stuff that's important to us. That's what people make time for. If it's important for you, then you make time for it. If it's not that important, then we make time for it accordingly, according to how important it is, right? So if the doctor gives us a bad diagnosis, what we do? We do what? What do we do in our lives immediately? We make changes. So the doctor said, if I don't do, so we do what? What are we changing? What we have to change. If the doctor says, listen, you got to change your eating, we're going straight to the market from the doctor's visit, right? We leave the doctors, we go straight to the market. All that stuff got to come out. I'm buying all this stuff. Doctor says you're not doing this. If by this time you got 6 months or this going to happen, we go right to the gym. I'm going to sign from the doctor's office, going to the gym, right? Because it's important, right? It's important. Whatever's important, we're going to make time for it. He says that knowledge is to be learned over time. It takes time. And if it takes time, that means from us, it takes what? Huh? If it's going to take time, then we have to have what? Patience. And we fast. We want everything now. We want the results today. Right? We fast. Because with patience means you might do the thing 4 times, 5 times, and you still don't get it. 3 years might go by and you still don't understand that one piece. The other pieces around that you got, but that one piece is still not clicking. And you can't leave it like that. You know in your brain, I really don't get that part. But the sabr is that you got to keep going back to it and going back to it. Right? It's done. And that's not going to be in a weekend. That's not going to take a couple days. That could take years. And that's why the principle is to teach, to be patient. Right? And this is a famous statement that Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri rahimahullah said. He said that Imam al-Ma'ruf, Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah. This is one of the Imams of the Salaf, Imam al-Zuhri. He was born 50 years after the Hijrah. And he died 124 after the Hijrah. He had a famous statement. Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah, he said, "Man rama ilm jumla dhahaba anhu jumla. وإنما يطلب العلم على مر أيام والليالي." That whoever tries to get all of the knowledge at one time, I'm gonna just get it all real quick at once. He said that's how it leaves you. It comes right in one ear, as we say, one ear right out the other. You try to get it all at one time, it leaves just like that in one time. Whoever ذهب عنه جملة, it all leaves at once. He says, وإنما يطلب العلم على مر أيام والليالي. But the knowledge is to be learned over time. It's going to take some time. And that means the person that's trying to learn has to be patient and have sabr with themselves. I don't get it. Because for real, y'all, we can be in the class and the person next to you learn faster than you. Right? Maybe 7 out of 10 people got it. There's only 3 of y'all that you thought when you walked in the room, you was probably the strongest one. But now when you look at it, you from the only 3 people who don't get it. You from the 3 people with the lowest grades. That means you didn't understand the information good enough to pass the test. That means you quit? No, that means you got to go back and get the information. And it might take more than one time. And that's why it's going to take time. And he said after that, this is to be taught, and this is the example he gives. And the point of mentioning this is to show, because sometimes we think that we have to, or we don't really give ourselves our due just. We don't really look at ourselves and put ourselves in our proper place, right? Like he said, because I've been around, because a person been around for a long time does not mean they understand what they're talking about. It's not a condition. It doesn't equal that. You've been here for 10 years, so you must know this, right? That's the expectation, but that might not be the reality, right? So he's saying that you got to look at yourself, and sometimes we belittle. We look at stuff like, hey, I know that already. That ain't right. Like it's no big deal, right? He says the same way we talking about learning Islam is the same way if you were to teach a child how to read. You teach children how to read. You start with whole words that they got to read, 3-syllable words, right? This is the example that you give to a person who wants to learn Islam. If you want to learn Deen, which the Prophet ﷺ said what? It's obligatory on who? Everybody. So it's nobody from us that should have an idea, I don't need to learn, I'm good. Right? He says the same way you will teach a child how to read or how to speak. He says that you have to do what? The same thing he said. You have to take them step by step. And step by step, y'all, takes time. And that's why when people leave to go study, everybody doesn't, as they say, make it. Some people don't go that long. Some people are tested with different things during their journey, and they can't continue. It's only by Allah's tawfiq that a person is able to go as far as they're able to go. Some people go for a year, and then that's it. You got to understand what comes with it. Some people go for a year and a half, that's it. Some people go for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. There's some people, I know brothers who died They finished in Saudi. They went to another country to learn more, and he died over there. Never made it back home. Some people die trying to learn, right? Based on everything that you have to deal with in that path. Now that's talking about leaving, going abroad. We're not talking about just us just leaving the house, right? Just getting off the couch, leaving the house because it's comfortable, right? It's comfortable. We in our homes, it's comfortable. It's on the live. I don't really have to, right? We're talking about just getting up and going to be present. In the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ that speak about the angels lowering their wings for halaqat al-ilm, for the people who are sitting trying to learn, trying to be a part of that, right? We're not talking about all that. We're talking about the fact that what you have to endure, what you're going to go through trying to learn, and the kickback you're going to get from it, that all of that's from patience. Because what's going to happen is you're going to learn something and you're going to change. And once you change, the people that you know are going to say, well, you changing. They might not like the change. They might not like it. So now they're going to critique you and criticize you because you change. Oh, you think you're better than us. You think you're this. You think you're that. That's from sabr. You got to be patient. All right? You can't leave off the knowledge that you learned that changed you and made you better because people who don't know what you know now are criticizing you. Right? That's from sabr. That's from patience with the harm that's going to come. The criticism is going to come because you might know something that the brother or sister sitting next to you don't know. So you understand what you're doing, but they don't understand what you're doing. You explain to them why you're doing it, and guess what? They still don't understand. And then y'all leave each other, and they have a problem with you. They don't understand. Possibly they don't understand. Or they do understand, and they disagree. Right? All of this is from sabr, from patience. That you got to go piece for piece, because if you go too fast, you're going to do what? You're going to skip the things that you're supposed to learn, and then at the end, when it's all said and done, because Allah could stop your opportunity from being able to learn, you have a bunch of holes in which how you understand things. And this is why he compared it to the person who teaches a child how to read or how to write. That you got to go shay'in for shay'in. And then once you take them like that, then they start to perfect their speech and their writing gets better over time. Right? He says this is the same way. كذلك العلم يبدأ بتحصيل صغاره قبل كباره. The same way for our Islam. We're supposed to learn this as not that it's small, but we're gonna get to it. We just translate as it is. You're supposed to learn the smaller areas of knowledge before you get into the larger areas of knowledge. There's some information that we must know, and then there's other information that is a lot more detailed. So when we learn, we should be learning from where? Starting with the smallest information first, the basics. That's where we're supposed to start from. Tayyib. He says here, how do we know if the issue is small? فَالْعِلْمِ مِنْهُ صِغَارُ وَمِنْهُ كِبَارُ. Some knowledge is considered to be smaller than other knowledge, but that's not really like some. And he says بِاعْتِبَارِ الفهم وباعتبار العمل وباعتبار كون العلم من الله وعن رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. طيب, he says firstly, it's small because what? The information, how much it takes to understand it is basic. This is basic stuff. This is basic Islam 101. Allah is the only one to be worshipped. In the basics of Islam will come as far as what do we believe? The 6 pillars of Iman, belief in Allah, right? The angels, the messengers, the books, belief in those small basic things, right? A person might say, I already know that. All right. Once you've mastered those things, now you move into the details. You got to move into the details now, right? Allah has names. How many names? Well, what does this name mean? Right? You start moving into the details. There are angels. How many angels? What does this angel do? Some angels have different jobs, right? These are details that every Muslim walking around might not know the details, right? Every Muslim walking around might not know the details of these things, but every Muslim knows what? 6 articles of faith, as we used to say, the 6 pillars of Iman, right? The 6 pillars of Iman, the Muslims know. Start getting into detail. The next level after that, that should say it's 100 people. Let's get into the details of the angels. Out of 100 people, you might be down to 20 that know the details of the angels, right? Let's get into specifics about the Malak al-Maut, the angel of death. Out of that 20, you might have 7 higher level of knowledge. You understand? And that's how it goes. So he says that knowledge is supposed to be started with the smaller things first. You master the small things. The same way we know our names, there's some things in Islam we're supposed to know. The same way we know our names. There's no way we should be stuttering, y'all. We should not be stuttering in Islam with the pillars of Islam. The 5 pillars, there's no way we should be stuttering. The 6 pillars of faith, there's no way we should be stuttering with that. This is basic Islam. All right? The basic rules of Ramadan, basic. I mean, basic means somebody walk up to you and ask you a question. You can tell them, oh, this is Ramadan. To us, Ramadan, this is how we fast. We can do this and we can't do this. There might be some specifics, new stuff. What about an asthma pump? All right, I don't know. You're talking about the groundwork, the basic groundwork. We don't eat from sunrise to sunset, right? We can't eat. We can't do this, that, and the third. There might be some specifics, some new things that came up. Cool. But the basics, we're supposed to know them off the top, right? He says, as far as knowledge, because basically they're saying that some things that are small and some things that are large, if you could translate, more in depth. Some things are, if you could say, not as detailed, and the large one is more detailed. He says, so you don't want to say they're not important, like one is small and one is larger. But he says the fact that the knowledge comes from Allah and from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, in this case, فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ فِي الْعِلْمِ شَيْءٌ سَهْلٌ. There's nothing about knowledge that should be considered easy. You should never approach something, well, that's easy. Wow, all the knowledge comes from Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is why I bring the story of Imam Malik rahimahullah. سُئِلَ الْإِمَامِ Malik rahimahullah. Al-Mas'ala faqal. We know Imam Malik from last week, right? Imam Malik has a nickname in Islam. Gotta know Imam Malik rahimahullah. Right? He's famous for what? A couple things. The Imam of Dar al-Hijrah, the Imam of Medina. The Imam of Medina, Imam Malik. Right? Somebody came and asked Imam Malik about an issue. It's the Imam of Medina at the time. He lived in Medina, died in Medina. He said Imam Malik never left Medina. Right? People used to travel to ask him questions. The famous story, the man came, he traveled all that time, a month's time travel to ask him some questions. Imam Malik, rahimahullah. It says, Su'ila Imam Malik, rahimahullah, an masala. The person asked him about an issue. Faqala what? La adri. He said, I don't know. I don't know the answer. All right? Faqala lahu sa'il. The person who asked the question, he said, Innaha mas'ala khafifa. He said, but this is a small issue. It's a light joint. Like people say this to me all the time. I got a little question for you. It ain't about nothing. You probably know you. All right? And then it'd be a whole joint. I'm like, I don't know. No, because I was reading. Well, okay, if that's what you read, then cool. You asking me, that is a little sound like a little more there to me personally. Now, if you might have read something that you're comfortable with, alhamdulillah. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying if you ask me, I might not know. So the man came to Imam Malik said, he said, I don't know. The man said, it's a small issue. It's not like a big issue like that. Masala khafifa. He said, Imam Malik got mad for ghadib. He got mad. This is a man coming. He coming to Imam Malik, rahimahullah, the Imam of Medina that everybody know. Imam Malik says, I don't know. The man going to tell him. He's going to tell Imam Malik, this is a small issue. How you don't know that? He said, Imam Malik got mad. He said, Laysa fil ilm shay'un khafif. Al-ilm kulluhu thaqil. He said, there's nothing about knowledge that's light and easy. All the knowledge is heavy. Everything about knowledge is heavy. Thaqil. There's nothing you should never look at like that's just a little issue, right? It's a little issue. No, even if it's a basic issue, even if it's basic, that means what? That means if it's so basic, you have done what? You mastered it. If it's so basic, you shouldn't be stuttering. You should be able to explain it to anybody who's standing in front of you. If it's so basic, it shouldn't be. I mean, you know how you got to start saying all types of, no, you should be able, if it's so basic, that means we should be able to explain it to whoever comes in front of us. Right? So he says, and he said to the man, didn't you hear what Allah Jalla wa Ala said in the Quran? And this is in Surah Al-Muzammil, the 5th ayah. Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila. I shall send down on you a heavy statement, meaning the Quran. It's heavy. You can't take, Allah said that the Quran is heavy. This is ilm, this is knowledge. You can't turn around and say this is a little light thing. That's how he understood it. All the knowledge is heavy. There's nothing light about knowledge. So there's no time we should look, even if, say, for example, because a person might have moved on to the intermediate level. But the one who moved on to the intermediate level, he's going to respect, or she's going to respect the level 1, because they know all of that information is still holding them over in level 2. So they're going to respect level 1. They're not going to look down on level 1. And at some point, they're going to say, what? I need to go back and review my level 1 stuff. It was a lot I did in level 1 that it's coming back in level 2. Right? So it's going to be either one or two things. Either I'm in level 2 and I'm shaky, which means I got to go back to level 1 and tighten up. Or I'm in level 2 and alhamdulillah, I'm surviving, which means I respect level 1 because all that level 1 stuff is helping me now. There's no time we look at knowledge and say, man, it's not really that big of a deal. He said after that, and this is not Imam Malik's statement, rahimahullah, that was the end of his statement when he read the ayat to the man. So he told the man nothing from is easy and nothing is light about knowledge. Everything is heavy. And then he read the ayat from Surah Al-Muzammil number 5. He says from ilm, Sheikh Saleh, he says, فَالْعِلْمَ مَنْ أَخَذَهُ عَلَىٰ أَنَّهُ ثَقِيلٌ صَعْبٌ أَدْرَكَهُ. صَعْبٌ أَدْرَكَهُ. Whoever, and this is important, whoever approaches the information that they get ready to learn, whoever approaches it with the idea, the understanding this is a serious, heavy issue I'm getting ready to take, these are the people who want to grasp on it and understand it. That they what? If it's difficult, if you see it not difficult, if you see it to be a serious issue, you're going to do what? Pay more attention. You're going to be focused. And the person that's focused more than likely is going to grasp the information of the person that's not really paying attention like that. But if I look at it like, oh, this John light ain't really, right? It's not really that deep like that. I already know this, right? What they're going to grasp is not going to be the same. It's not the same approach. So in here he's teaching, how do we approach learning? You don't approach learning. I mean, I did that book like 10 years ago. Oh, I remember that book. That was one of the books I did when I first became Muslim. Yeah. Okay, but if that's the case and it's like that, then the assumption is you know everything in that book inside out. You should, right? If you belittle it like that, then that means you should know it. And either way, we shouldn't be belittling the knowledge. He says, and the person who does, man akhadha al-masail ala annaha sahla, whoever goes and they approaches, oh, this is easy, I already understand this, and they just go through it. He says, this person, فَإِنَّهُ يَفُوتُهُ شَيْءٌ كَثِيرٌ, they're going to miss a lot. A lot of things going to go right over their head because they're not doing what? They're not paying attention really like that. I already got this. So I don't really have to focus like that. The focus should always be there, whether I learned it already or I didn't. If I already learned it, then I'm just doing what at that point? I'm just refreshing and reviewing. And if I didn't learn it, then it's brand new. And a lot of times we learn stuff for the first time, a lot of us. We learn stuff for the first time, or we hear for the first, and it don't stick. We heard in the class, it made total sense. We get home, don't even remember what he said. He was saying something about like, alhamdulillah, we got the thing. Now you can go back and look at it again. But a lot of times we get on down, we go overboard. We're not patient with ourselves. We think we're supposed to hear it the first time and it's supposed to stick. That's it. It don't go like that. For most people, it doesn't go like that. All right. For most people, it does not go like that. And that's why they said about Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah. People were amazed by Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, because he could read something one time and memorize the whole thing. That was amazing because that's not the norm. Normally, people don't look at stuff and have a photographic memory like that. All right. That's not the norm. And we are normally people don't understand it like that the first time. And if I don't understand like that the first time and I'm serious about learning it, that means I got to do what? I'm going to have to go back over it again. I'm going to have to read the same thing over again. And that's where it gets the sabr. Because we say, well, I'm tired of reading this junk. Like I want to get into another book. I want to get into something else. Right. But in reality, I'm not at that level yet. And that's where the sabr, being patient with yourself. Okay. Now you start to learn yourself because you see other people around you who say, okay, I see my pace of learning is like this. And you start learning yourself. Okay. I see him. Okay. He does, and he memorized more Quran than me. So that helps him too. Right. So now you can start looking at yourself and really gauging yourself and where you really at. Right. But that takes sabr. It takes patience. So he said that whoever does that, they go and they're not really paying attention, they're going to miss a lot of information. And this is why لا بد في طلب العلم من التدرج فيه على أصوله وعلى منهجية واضحة. He said, and this is why when a person goes to learn, whenever you're learning, he says that you have to do what? It's called a tadarruj. There's steps, there are levels. Just because everybody going to sit, and this is another thing. He mentioned this in another lecture. Just because everybody's going to sit in the sheikh's class, that this is the biggest sheikh around, and that sheikh, that class, that specific class might not be your level. This might not be your level. We're not talking about everybody else who's going to benefit. You're talking about you and the level that you're on. It might be a less known sheikh teaching at the same time. But the less known sheikh is teaching your level. Right? The more famous sheikh is teaching, for example, he's teaching level 3, you in level 1. They teach at the same time. Their classes start at 6:30. Whose class is it more appropriate to go to? Level 1, your level. A lot of brothers go to, and sisters, they go to the wrong level based on what? Based on the popularity of the teacher. Right? And they end up at the end, not that the teacher don't know what they're talking about, not that the teacher's not the sheikh, not that the person who went there is not going to get some benefit. Right? But it's not, you in the wrong class. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. Right? And that's why you got to be strong. Right? Because if they're going to turn around and say, well, you wasn't at the sheikh class. Where was you at? Well, I was over here at such and such class. Well, who that? It's a whole thing. But you got to know yourself. You got to know reality. This is my level. For real, you should have been in there with me, but you chose to go over there. That's on you. In reality, your level is, we in the same level, and you a little weaker than myself because we together all the time. You really weaker than me, but if that's what you want to do, that's on you.
See how you said like people go to like the more popular sheikh or the more known sheikh instead of going to the sheikh that might not be as known. Everything with Islam is so perfect because it ties back into a bunch of things. It ties back into, like we always say, in their reality, like it ties back into because of the thing to make sure that you go to the popular sheikh instead of you going to the sheikh that you need to go to learn,
Right.
Just so you can go back to where you from. Say, yeah, I said such.
No doubt.
My man can go, yo, my man said such.
No doubt.
Now it's
That's why, and that's part of protecting your intention, your niyyah. Why are you going to the class in the first place? Are we showing up places so people could see we was there? That's not a good intent. The intent is to go to learn, to make sure I don't know this. Like, okay, if a flyer come out and there's a class going on, and I say to myself, I don't know this stuff. I need to go learn this because I don't know. I've been Muslim such and such years. I never went through this. I need to go there and learn that. Right? I'm not going there so the people there could see I was there. Because once I do that, then that's a corrupt intention. That intention is not pure. The intent should be to go to learn. I don't know this stuff, and I need to learn this stuff to practice my religion. So that's why I'm going to go to this class and learn. Now, if you choose to go there, alhamdulillah, that's on you. But that needs to be your level. You can't be scared to go to the level class that you're in. You can't be scared to admit your level. We can't be scared to admit what level we on. It's no problem. Nobody woke up a scholar. Nobody. Right? Part of our problem is we don't want people to know what we don't know. We scared for people to find out what we don't know. We don't want people to know what I really know. I'm really not like you thought I was. So when that happens, we lose what? We lose a little points in whoever we're talking to. But we're not doing this. Our deen is for Allah. We're not doing this for no points from no people. So it don't matter what they think. We shouldn't care what they think. That the niyyah, the intention is supposed to be for Allah. So I'm going to learn so that I can strengthen my iman and strengthen my relationship and strengthen my deen. That's why I'm going to this level 1 class that nobody really know who this sheikh is. He's not that famous. Now you can go with the famous sheikh, alhamdulillah. It's no problem. But the point is, you got to know your level. And this is why he said a tadarruj, that a person has to go on the proper level that they're on and take the proper steps and follow the proper path of learning. Now, let me ask you this, y'all. How would we know the path of learning to be a scholar? Where would we find that out from?
Biography of the scholar.
Huh?
Biographies of
The biography. Say it again.
biographies of the scholars.
What does that mean?
Like read their biographies.
What does that equal to?
Could you repeat your question?
If a person wants to learn, right? I don't know the path. I don't know what I'm supposed to do to learn. Like, is it just go out there and go for it? That's a problem. That's going to be a problem, right? So if it's a specific way you're supposed to do it, who would I ask? Somebody that did it. Tell you. A scholar. Somebody that's learned already. A learned person is going to tell you, if you consider them learned, then you need to ask them, well, how did you do that? And the scholars lay out, okay, what they did to get to the level they at, generally, right? So when you read through their biographies, you read the biography of Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah. I mean, we was in school, I read Sheikh bin Baz's biography. And in his biography, it had all the books we were studying in school, right? Now, I didn't think I was no Sheikh bin Baz or nothing, but I felt good, like, dang, if he did these and I got these, if I can get these Jones down, then I might be all right, right? So I said, okay, he went through Qatl and Nedda, right? He memorized that, memorized Bulugh al-Maram, he memorized this. Like, these all of the books that we carrying around every day with us, right? These are books that are familiar. It's a path, it's a thing. If you do this first, then you do this, then you do this. I say, well, Dad, how I get down here? I didn't know it was 2 books. I'm on the 3rd book, but I skipped the first 2 books, right? And if he's more knowledgeable than me, then why am I jumping the gun like that? It's a path, it's a thing, a pathway, a way you go about it to do it so that you are following the path of people who did it before. And it's just like any other thing. Anybody else in a specific science or a specific job, right? You go to the people who've been doing it and who are respected and ask them, well, what's the thing? How do I go about doing this? They say, well, first you got to go back and start an apprenticeship because you don't know, but I know, no. The way you got to go all the way back and start from there and work your way up, right? And either you do it or you don't. We like to cut corners. A lot of us like to cut corners. When you cut corners, it's going to show at the end. It's going to show at the end. So I think that's the other thing, right? Tayyip. Tayyip, he says lastly, it's kind of repetitive. It's the same thing. We'll stop there, inshallah, unless there's any questions. The last point was the same thing that he told the man who said the issue was an easy issue, that none of the knowledge is supposed to be approached as if it's easy and you already know everything is supposed to be taken seriously. Of course, according to the level you're on, which takes every person. I can't tell you. I probably could, but you got to know your own level. Can't be ashamed to say I need to go back and start over. Who cares? Like, what's going to really happen if we really serious about learning? If we serious about learning, which the Prophet ﷺ told us, because the whole point of this was the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that what? Talk about learning Islam. Which issues of Islam? What's basic? The things that we need every day to live our lives as Muslims is obligatory on every Muslim. The men and the women. I hope the sisters don't think this stuff is only for the men, for your husbands. I hope the sisters don't think only the brother's supposed to be learning and they supposed to come home and teach you everything. So he's supposed to, like, come on. This is the Muslim. Every Muslim is included, right? To the best of our ability. And now we got to say, well, if I can't go, what excuse do we really have now when most of the stuff is on the internet? And I'm not saying you should sit home. You should go. Because the next issue is now some people, they home and they watching because they can't get out. Alhamdulillah. But they're not like the people who came here. It's not the same. It's a little more. It takes a little more to drive in the rain and traffic, get there, and everything you had to do to get there. So now, right, the people who are sitting there, they have questions. So the questions is a back and forth that you can't get when you're home. You can't get that when you're home. So we'll stop there, inshallah, unless there's any questions. It's time for my father. I'm sorry.
So let's say that a person, right, started off learning incorrect, right, for years. How do a person, let's say you first started learning, they was on level 3, right? You was still kindergarten,
Right.
Just on level 3. And you learned on the fly over the years, right? Now you realize, oh, it's time to learn this thing a little bit because some of this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do you go back to, you know what I'm saying, like, you know?
Jay, the person started on level 3 and then they figure out they started on the wrong level and they need to go back. Go back. Find the class that's on the level you need to go back to and start there. No shame. No shame. Sometimes, man, like sometimes we really be worried about what other people want to say. Sometimes we really be worried about somebody saying, what you doing in that class? When in reality, the one asking you what you doing should be in that class. They don't know that they don't know. So a lot of times you just can't care. You can't care about people, how they're going to look at you.
Straight off the streets. I left the streets off. Get my life together, right? All over, all this class, that class, whatever. And my brother was like, man, so what you learning right now? My book bag on. I'm like, well, you know, I'm in such and such class, this one class. I said, yeah. He said, look, don't be a jack of all trades and master of none.
Jay.
And it's crazy. He told me over 10 years, but I didn't really understand it to just now. Whoa. Like, you could be all over.
So just now?
Say it again.
You said so just now?
Say it once.
You said you crazy. You didn't understand it. So just now?
I would say the last couple of years.
Mm.
Damn, okay. I'm 35 now. So I'm like, wow. He told me I was about 21, 22. But you can be like in this class, that class, you know what I'm saying? Because that can be the thing.
Right.
You know everybody got to learn.
Right.
But then you're like, wow, hold on. You know I'm saying? You close to.
Yeah, like you said, you don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. That's why when you go to school, they give you a what? When you go to college, they give you a major. They give you a major. What are you going to major in? Like, what are you really trying to do? We got to give you some specifics. You got to be specialized in something, right? And then they do have, right? They have some degrees that are just general degrees, right? You got general, it's just general, but you're a master of nothing. You can go to a bunch 10 classes, but what are you really learning? Everything is just grabbed a little here, grabbed a little here, grabbed a little here. Most important thing is that the class is on your level, because if you are going to more than one class, right, it's possible those two classes tie in. They tie together, but they need to be on the same level. You need to know your level, right? You need to know your level. I'll give you an example. I'm gonna start with this. A lot of times when I teach the Arabic, right, brother said, what levels you got? You got level 1, level 2. I'm probably I already did level 1, so I'm gonna do level 2. Okay. But when I touched your reading, though, your reading is level 1 reading. But a level 1 person, a person with level 1 reading in Arabic, he won't mind. He will say, I should be in level 3. He thinks he should be in level 3 sometimes. No problem. No, I'm talking about with no reservations and nothing. So with that, read this for me real quick. That's level 1. That type of reading is level 1 reading. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because knowledge, if it's not used, then it's what? Forgotten, it's lost. So if you don't use it, you lose it. So it's possible you did level 1. And it's possible you did level 2. Then the next question is, how long ago was that? Right? And have you been using it? Because if you haven't been using it, then you could have finished level 1 and 2, but your reading right now, today, is on level 1. And if that's the case, you got 1 or 2 options. Either you need to do a whole bunch of review before class start to get your reading level back up, or you need to just go back to level 1. And there's no shame in either one. Because at the end, the person benefiting is going to benefit. You're going to benefit from it. So it's no shame in it. We'll stop there, inshallah, so we could pray with sallallahu wa sallam wa barakatuh Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.